I'm so, so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. We were just talking before we hit record about our shared childhoods in New England. Because right
Yeah.
now I've got the snow outside, totally New Hampshire vibes where I grew
Uh-huh.
up, and you grew up right next door in
In
Vermont,
Vermont.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. In
And
the
you were saying you're missing the snow.
I'm missing the snow. Yeah, and every time I hear about this time of year, I see pictures on Instagram or hearing you talk about it, and I'm just like, it
Because you're
just
in
hits a
Texas
spot.
now, right?
Yeah, Texas, and it's funny because usually here, I've been here for almost 5 years, 4 years, and usually twice a year or so there'll be like two snowstorms we get, and it's not much. It's like 3 or 4 inches, and it'll be gone the next day. And it's always a nice little hit to my little kid inside that loves the snow. It's like, yes. We didn't get it this year. We didn't get the storms this year.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, when we were in Texas, just for the year and a half that we were there in your area,
Hmm.
we got there like right when that huge storm hit. So it
The
was, we were
apocalypse.
like running away from the snow. We were coming
Yeah,
from the north going, all right, what's this white stuff following us everywhere?
yeah. It is shocking when you get to Texas. You're like, wait a second. Like I thought we were in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was a big one. That was the one
Yeah,
that shut the city down for a
it's
week.
snowpocalypse. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah, February. Yeah, I remember that. That was people were skiing down South Congress. Like
Yes.
literally, there was that much snow here.
It was intense.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy to have you on and to talk about your your journey with spirit and
Hmm.
your whole experience, and also, of course, getting into the facilitation work that you do for others. But
Hmm.
tell us about, this is the everyday mystic. So the
Yeah.
whole idea around this is that we are all, and within each and every one of us, we have a mystic, a spirit that connects to source consciousness, whether we
Hmm.
know it or not. And
Yeah.
of course, I talk to people who know it. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I know that. And
Yep. Yeah.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you came to know that.
Ooh, I love how you put that, how I came to know this, because it's, a knowing would almost represent something was already in you, that it was, a remembering. And so for me, it's been exactly that. It's been a remembering. And, the more I get into this and the deeper down the road I go, further down the road I go, the deeper it goes back. And I've landed on that. This all started for me the day I was born here in this lifetime on this planet. The day I entered this vortex, because I spirit, the word spirit, the root word is involved in respiration, breath. And so for me, I was born with severe asthma, severe food allergies, and I also had this tendency a lot as a kid to choke on my food. And so that meant that that's three things right there that compromise breath. And so I, from a very young age, had this kind of complicated relationship with breath, respiration, with spirit. Like I was having this constant conversation with spirit about how do I connect? How do I survive? How do I create space in this world?
Mm.
And so, going back, I can say that the childhood that I had a childhood that, by all accounts, if you would ask me even 10 years ago, how was your childhood? Loving, amazing. Like we were talking about, skiing every winter and playing tennis every summer, and the quintessential New England kind of childhood, and lots of love in the house. And then I ran into some things in my adult life that further connected me to spirit, that further brought me into that union with spirit, that were point to maybe there was something else going on in my childhood. And for me, that was the severe illness and the struggle to breathe. And
So
so
did you
as
not
I
remember that before kind of this point in adulthood? Had you forgotten that you had had these childhood illnesses and struggles?
No, I hadn't forgotten. I don't think that I didn't connect the dots, would probably be a
Okay.
better way to say that. I remember that I had, being in the hospital a lot as a kid, and I was in the hospital for probably 2 or 3 times a year for about a week at a time,
Oh,
because of an
wow.
asthma attack, or eating a peanut or a walnut or some kind of allergic reaction. And that was the first 15 years of my life. was
Mm,
that experience. And so, yeah, no, I didn't forget it, but at the same time, I think I just looked at it as like, oh, that was my childhood. Like it was okay. Like it was, for me, I hate to say the word normal, but for me, that was the experience, and that was,
yeah.
I didn't really take it. I didn't really take it more than that experience. I didn't, and then as these things happened later in life, mostly addiction and some relationship stuff, it really brought me to a place where I needed to look a little deeper here.
Mm, yeah. And what did you find when you looked deeper? Was it the trauma of the illness? Because just illness and hospitalizations and your fear around whether you're going
Yeah.
to be okay and survive, right? That's traumatic enough. But was there something deeper than that?
Um, that was definitely a big part of it. It was this fear, this feeling very different. This there was bullying that was involved. There was some like kids make fun of me for breath. There was lots of shame there
Mm,
for feeling so different. And as I did this work, I also recognized that you know with the word karma gets so just abused these days, but
mhm,
they're like coming into a world with those experiences happening, like I mean literally from day one. You think like we build up karma and we pay off karmic debts here in this lifetime, but this was karmic debt from previous lifetimes for me,
mhm,
and it came with me into this life. And from the beginning, just clearing this breath thing, clearing this space thing, clearing this shame stuff. A lot of it I've landed on was attached to my maternal grandfather. There was a lot of shame there, and a lot of destruction and a lot of behaviors was also attached to my paternal grandfather. So the two men that are not so much my father, but and my mother, but the next generation back. There was a lot of clearing happening there, and what I landed on that was like there was the trauma, but what I landed on deeper was that I came into this world feeling like I didn't matter. There was something about not mattering or falling through the cracks or disappearing. Something about um, being ignored. That feeling that I was going to be left out. And so what I did is I came in and I recognized that, and I created these things in this life, this asthma, this food allergies, this eczema, this choking on food, as ways to receive love, receive attention, receive. It was a way to matter. It was a way for me to. It was what I saw as my value in the world was you have to pay attention to me because I'm struggling, and so I can't breathe right now. Uh, you know, Help me breathe. Rush me to the hospital, or something that I need attention with.
mhm. Yeah. How did your parents respond to this as far as you being a sick and ill child? Like, did it
Yeah,
have any, like, do you feel like it all just was brought in from another lifetime and from generational wounds, like you said,
yeah.
from your paternal grandparents? Or was this also something from within this lifetime and how you were being raised or treated?
Um, so my parents were they did the best. I mean, they cared for me a lot. There was a lot of like midnight trips to the hospital, rushing to the hospital at 2 a.m. A lot of sleepless nights, I'm sure. Like that, and the thing that triggered this deeper look for me was that I ended up in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous after 20 plus years of addiction, and I was sitting in these rooms, and there was a big disconnect for me because. Um, I was sitting around listening to these stories of these people that had these severe drinking problems, these severe drug problems, and they're all talking about alcoholic homes, abusive homes, whether that's sexual, verbal, physical abuse. And I'm hearing all these stories about these broken homes and this, all this anger in the house. And my experience was like I didn't really have any of that. I
Mm,
had a very loving household. I had parents that loved each other, that were together. My parents got divorced when I was probably 23, 22, something like that. And so they basically raised three kids, and then the three kids were out of the house, and they had the empty nest, and they separated. So I never really knew a broken home or any kind of the things that would point in the direction saying like, yeah, you should have some addiction issues or abuse, or there's some abuse there. And so as I sat in these rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and sitting around hearing these stories, I had to ask myself, why am I here? If I don't have this quote unquote typical alcoholic story, Why am I here? What am I doing in this room? And that's what triggered me to looking deeper into this, was that although my parents loved me and took care of me and saved my life on multiple occasions, and there was none of that typical stuff, there was an experience that I was having that was different than my
Mhm.
sisters, different than my friends that I was growing up with at the time. It was a very different experience that I got to look deeper into, and understand that all the things, like, I felt like a burden a lot. I felt
Mhm.
like, and there was shame around that. I felt like, that my family could have had, like, more money or more trips, or we could have had something different experience if I wasn't so sick. And so that carrying that burden, with that, the burden of feeling like a burden with
Mm.
me, was really heavy. And so as I looked deeper in it, I just recognized that I had this life that was essentially, it's funny. As I got older, I would always say, um, I want to find breathing room. I don't feel like I have any breathing room, like, in life, within
Mhm.
relationships, and within finances, or within my career, whatever it was. And then finally it clicked. I'm like, of course I don't have any breathing room. Like, I've spent my entire life struggling to breathe. And so, and now I've cured the asthma. I've cured I've ridden myself of the allergies. I don't have allergies anymore. And all this stuff came from recognizing where this was all coming from, this need for safety, this need for attention, this need for um, mattering, and
Mhm.
the emotional wounds and the traumas that come with it. Um, Once I healed all that, like, that's the lifetime stuff. Is so bringing this stuff in from the past life, the shame, the guilt. I mean, the lungs carry a ton of shame. That's the emotional center of shame in the body. And then there, so the shame that was carried in, and then I had to kind of unwind in this lifetime the reason that I kept holding on to that for 38 years, 35 years of finding struggles, of being destructive, of all this stuff. So there's that stuff that came in with me to unravel, and then the stuff that I kept carrying with me, the reasons I held on to it all, that I had to unravel. I've unraveled that for the past 15 years.
How confusing that must have been at the beginning because of, before, unless you were raised with someone who, in a family or in a culture that believes in, past lifetimes and karmas
Hmm.
and,
Yeah,
and generational wounds.
yeah,
You think, oh, everything is about here and
yeah,
now and the
yeah.
physical.
Hmm.
So that must have been really confusing to go, well, where the heck did this come from? So what pointed you in the direction, even in the first place, of going to those deeper layers to find, like, what was the opening there to kind of go, look deeper, besides the curiosity of, like, something else has got to be going on?
Yeah.
Was there like a set of teachings or practices or things that led you into that
Um,
door?
Yeah, so I would say that the first directional arrow, so to speak, would be experiencing so much pain, and just like that, like you said, like, obviously there's something deeper here. And then once um, I did a lot of work in, like, in what I would call a human form, like, in a very sober, a very, like, grounded, a very present human form, and that all led me to some repeating patterns. And then once I kind of got I left. That was when I left AA at about 7 years sober. I decided, I'm gonna choose a different path here, because there's things I don't know that are happening here. There's things that I'm experiencing that I've experienced over and over, and they don't seem to go away. So there's something I don't know, and so that's when I stepped out, and I got pretty deep. I didn't got I am pretty deep in the plant medicine path, and so stepping onto these indigenous tribes and these indigenous cultures and this ancient wisdom really allowed me to tap into the energy of it all, and recognize that there, like, the quantum field and the energetic imprints that happen. And then um, getting beyond that immediate experience of, okay, this is a painful experience, and what's there's a book, Existential Kink, and Caroline Lovewell, she talks about evidence, or having is evidence of wanting. So if I'm having these repeated experiences, these struggles, there's an element of me that actually it serves me. And so why? why does that serve me? How does that serve me? And so looking past that, and this is diving into, some Buddhist scriptures, some Hindu scriptures, like a lot of ancient texts that point in the that point in the direction of this energetic field, this energetic kind of vortex that we all operate in. And then once I recognized that, it opened up so many doors, because then it allowed me to go into the jungles of the Amazon jungles and other areas of the world that offer these experiences, to really, really tap into what's beyond our experience. And then once I tapped into what's beyond our experience, there's knowledges, and there's memories, and there's rememberings, and there's wisdom that drops in that really, really does free you in a way, or freed me in a way that I have this idea that we have to do all this stuff. We have to practice, and do. And yes, that's true. There's an element of that, and there's also an element of, once it's acknowledged, it kind of evaporates. A lot of stuff evaporates once it's tapped into and acknowledged and seen. And that's kind of like, if we want to talk like the mystic side of it, is that we don't really have to do a lot.
Right.
We are, the thing that we have to do is be willing to look. Like, okay, I'm willing to see what it is now. And then once that happens, then we get to bring it back to the human and say, okay, I saw that. Now what's the change behavior? And that's the more the doing part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of the doing is in surrendering too,
100%, yes.
which feels like, oh, well, yeah, you don't have to do much there, right? You just let go. That's the hardest part, to let go of the grip that we have, right, on this reality. Just let go. And like, no. Yeah. So much of our pain and struggle comes from just that fierce iron grip on this reality.
Yeah,
Which,
we think we know how it's supposed to look or how it's supposed to
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And it's not. It never. I as I look more deep into it, I also recognize that, like, it has very rarely gone how I thought it was going to go. In any experience, relationship, in career, in a plant medicine journey, like, we all, I think as humans, like, we love that comfort of knowing, okay, like, it's that analytical mind that, like, okay, I know this is the steps and this is how it's going to go. And then going into the experience, you're like, well, that's not exactly how I thought it was going to go. And that happens more often than the actual, like, that's exactly how I thought it was going to go.
Right. Because, I mean, if you think from a quantum perspective, every moment can change the possibility of the next moment. So what we do in this, so it's like, how can you even predict what the future moments are going to look like? Because we don't know what we're going to do in the now moment, right? 100%. At every moment. So
in every moment.
Yeah.
Even this conversation, like, we're talking now for 20 minutes or so, and we don't know how the next 40 is going to go.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's going to come out, what's going to show up, and being open to that, I think, is just, beautiful way to flow through life, to be
100% agree.
Yeah. And I loved when we had our pre-podcast chat and I was saying, oh yeah, we're just going to have a conversation. You're like, amazing. Like, rather than like, I'm going to give you a set of interview questions and then we're going to go through them like we're having a conversation, which I've been on podcasts like that before. And, no shade to those. I mean, it's a format and it's a formula. And it could create, a nice succinct podcast episode, but for this subject matter, I mean, we could do that, but it would be a disrespect to this particular subject matter, right?
Yeah, it would be very limiting. Yeah.
Yeah. So you, after your time in AA and then finding plant medicine, now you say you've been on this journey since then of an awakening or a return of remembrance, as you called it earlier. What are you remembering?
That's a great question. I think what I'm remembering is that, wow, there's so much. Everything happens in divine timing. They're never in the wrong place at the wrong time. There's never a time when something doesn't go your way. Now, that doesn't take away from the idea that there's going to be some less than ideal circumstances or discomfort. pain. That's going to happen. And what I'm remembering is that through all of it, that there is uh, life is a trust fall. This human experience is one massive trust fall, and then within that, how well can we fall? How well can we land in a moment? Like as you're talking about, like every moment is a moment. How well do we get as we fall, as we trust fall? How well do we land in all these moments? And when to remember that we can never be in the wrong place at the wrong time, in front of the wrong person at the wrong time. Um, the remembering that every experience, even so much as like if I was to like as simple as like if I'm gonna go out to my car in the morning and I go out there and I sit down and I start my car and I'm getting ready to pull out and I'm like, oh, I forgot my phone. Like even that little thing, like having to go back into the house, there's something there for me. There's
Yeah.
something in that. There's something that is happening for me in a way. And oftentimes it's I walk back and forgot my phone. Oh, I also forgot my wallet. Good thing I forgot.
Hmm.
Good thing I recognize. Like there's so many little nuances that happen when we are open to that every moment is happening for us. There's
Yeah.
something in every moment for us to experience that we actually have called in lifetimes ago. Like this is
Hmm.
all divinely timed and divinely orchestrated. Um, us talking right now, us meeting in general is some sort of like New Hampshire and Vermont. Like
Hmm.
we didn't know that before we met, and so
Right.
like the idea that like souls are connected and souls are we're always aligning, and the quantum entanglement of it all is so beautiful, and to remember that we can never be in the wrong place at the wrong time is one of the most freeing things that we can ever experience.
Absolutely.
My journey, I've lived in so many different places: Vermont, North Carolina, Miami, San Francisco, Tulum, Utah. Here, it's like knowing that like all of those places serve something for me, and I didn't plan on living in all those places. Just at the moment that I was tapped in and said, "Okay, this is where I'm going next," and they were all beautiful experiences. And that's the big remembering for me is knowing that it's a trust thing. It's that we get to trust this life, this source, and trust spirit, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. And, I recognize that decades ago too of the whole, trust what the universe has in store for you. All of it is here for you. And yet it's taken me decades to actually trust, right? I knew that and I said that to myself. Some spirit said that to me. That came from source completely. Like
Hmm.
trust us, trust the universe. And I believed it, but then it's taken me decades to actually get into that full trust. And that's the journey. That's this incredibly, it doesn't have to be the same length of time as, everyone's got the different lengths of time and the different um you know roller coaster lows and highs and all of that within the journey, but it is a process, isn't it?
Mm,
Right? It's
yeah,
not something, oh, you realize something one day and then all of a sudden your whole life, yes, your whole life kind of enters a new trajectory, but it's not, we still fight it. And we still,
yeah,
are in this human body working through the trust, right? So what
yeah,
did you do? And like, what are some of your most profound ways of that trust and staying in that trust? Because it's so easy to say, but then to
yeah,
actually be in it
yeah,
is a lot harder.
yeah. I love that you said that about like the knowing comes in, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that idea. And then sure enough, you're like, no, but you don't trust. Yeah, yeah, no, you don't yet.
And here we're going to give you all these
Yeah,
examples and
yeah, yeah,
tests
yeah,
to prove
yeah.
that
Do
you
you
still don't
really
get
do you really trust? Yeah, exactly. Um, and so some of the work that has enabled me to drop mostly into that, and again, like it is a constant work. There's going to be things daily that are like, do you really trust? And the human in us, the ego, wants to kick on and get squirrely and say, "Oh, but I don't like this." And for me, one of the most profound things that has helped me is nervous system work.
Mm.
Is doing the work like on the nervous system to so in those moments when, quote unquote, don't trust, when like something that happens that it's not so cool for you, how well are you to stay present in that moment?
Yeah.
And for me, it was like 20 years of, I don't like this experience. Let me drink myself into a stupor. That's a complete breach of presence, a complete, like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And so trust is an ultimate form of presence. Just like discipline is the highest form of self-love, trust is the highest form of presence. And so if we are saying that we trust and knowing that trusting is the way, and we can't be present with the moment, then we're not trusting. And so the work that I have done is breath, it's plant medicine work, it's nervous system work, um, it's learning about the nervous system, how to tone it, how to, like, learning about the vagus nerve, all these things that recognizing in a moment when your nervous system wants to freak out and run, and
Mm.
it could be physically actually leaving a place that wants to happen. It could be leaving a relationship. It could be checking out. It could be drinking something. It could be numbing out. It could be anything that rips me out of the moment. And so the answer of how do you trust more is you trust more. Yeah. And how do you trust more? You become okay. You become more okay in your body with the experiences that are happening.
Yeah, the presence is so, I mean, it's in every ancient philosophy and religion, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
these practices of presence, even, religions of today, of where you may have a moment of prayer and that's bringing you into that present moment. Even if you might be
Mm-hmm.
praying for something in the future, you're still, like centering, right? It's a real
Yeah.
centering and grounding
Mm-hmm.
experience. For many, not, I don't think everybody necessarily prays like that, but it is, I think, intended to be that. So yeah, coming into presence, being in the now is, um,
Yeah.
again, one of those things that sounds like so silly easy, but it is
Yeah.
so freaking hard for
Yep.
us. And then we live in a world and in a society it's designed really to take us out of presence and to
Yep.
distract us with all these other bells and whistles to bring us out of our body, bring us out of presence, and kind of attract us to these other moments. Now, of course, we've got, with intention, everything that surrounds us and that we are in and in this world currently or in the future, all can be experienced in presence,
Mm-hmm.
right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
That comes from within. But we do live in a place that I will say is very distracting. And there's a lot of things that have been designed in our modern world that are distractive. Um, so aside from avoidance, which
Yeah.
is like, okay, we can avoid ourselves or avoid our things, our
Mm-hmm.
shadow. And we can also distract ourselves away from ourselves and our shadow,
Yeah.
these very strong forces away
Mm-hmm.
from that inner presence. Do you have any theories or as to, why those things are set up here in that way? Are they
So,
like hoops and just things for us to jump through so that we can have that experience? Or do you have any theories around that?
yeah, I do actually. As you were talking, I was this everything you said was like, oh, download coming in. We I think that one thing that's happened is we rush through things, and whether that's rushing through foreplay when it comes to sex, or rushing through a conflict in a relationship, a hard conversation, rushing to get to a certain point, rushing to get to the next thing, and so all of this is um, we rush through something because what's really happening underneath is that we're anticipating something, some sort of pain incoming. Either we're experiencing a pain acutely, or we're anticipating that this is going to be painful. So, like with intimacy, for example, a lot of the guys that I work with, they rush through the foreplay and they rush through the intimacy to get to the end, because within intimacy, I found, is probably the most prevalent uh, opportunity for rejection.
Mm.
for humans, and a lot of guys that I talk to, like, I want to get through this as fast as possible, but and that might mean pleasing the woman, but I'm going to get through as fast as possible so I decrease my chance of rejection, so I decrease my potential for pain. And so all this stuff, this ripping out of presence, is designed around decreasing the potential for pain. Now, that being said, the theory that come up with here is the same thing as medicines. Like, it's treating symptoms. So these Instagram, TikTok, like this attention span that we have, that is like, what, 3 seconds now or something, is ridiculously low, because we have spent so many years treating a symptom of something, as opposed to getting deeper into, like, okay, so treating the symptom. The symptom is, I want to get out of this painful experience as quickly as possible. Sweet. Let me give you a 90-second reel so that you can just rush through it. Let me accept breadcrumbs in the bedroom so that you can rush through sex. Or let's get this conflict resolved as quickly as possible so that we just rush through it and get it over with. All of it is the symptom of this is the pain. So how do we treat this pain? We rush through it. Less pain, less time in the discomfort, less time in the pain.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, we haven't ever looked at, why are we rushing through things in the first place? Or on the other side of that, why do we procrastinate? Because procrastination is, you could look at that as slowing down, but it's also avoiding something that we see as discomfort. I'm not going to put out a video on Instagram because I'm going to get judged for it, potential pain. So I'm just going to procrastinate and perfectionize it and all this stuff. And so the theory that I have about all this stuff, this society that we've created, that has been created for us, is that people have recognized that humans will avoid pain at all costs. It's built in it's in our DNA to do that. And also we do it, we kind of co-sign on it. And so all these things that are designed to, like, allow us to not be present are designed, like the people that have invented Instagram or TikTok, this algorithm is like, oh yeah, people don't like pain, so let's get real quick hits. And now we start to be programmed to, like, quickness, aka rushing, aka taking us out of presence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everything external to us, at least those examples that you gave, I'll take it back. Not everything external to us, but those particular are avoid the pain, right? Those cheap dopamine hits,
Yeah,
rather than earning the true dopamine rush, right? And
yeah,
earning, all of that. So it is, an interesting state of the world right now, of where, and I see it, I have a 12-year-old, and so I see it in the kids a lot too, of where, we're a little bit safe from it, I think, in our generation, just having not completely grown up with it. It's just like, oh, well,
yeah,
you can adopt it, you can get addicted, just like, to anything that's introduced to you. But because we have another time when it wasn't in our lives,
yeah,
it's something that some of us can say, nope, okay, I'm going to shut that out. I remember those times and I'm going to
uh-huh.
go back to that. Whereas kids, that are being raised in this model, they don't have another model, right?
Yeah,
So my husband and I are, like, very much on this mission to help kids not become consumed by that. That you can
yeah,
become consumed by being a consumer. It's like forced consumerism.
mm-hmm.
And then you're consumed by that. It's like this. At where we live, there's a museum here, and there was an interesting exhibit on the early industrial revolution. And it was all these paintings that were done in the early, and they were fascinated with factories. So there's tons of paintings of factories, because, like, what is this crazy thing that's, like,
Yeah,
cranking out stuff at record speed? And I mean, these machines were like gods. It's like, very, a fascinating subject. But then there was one part of the exhibit that was a video, and it was a Charlie Chaplin video, where, he as a actor was, he was like a over the top and there was a
Yeah.
lot of sarcasm in his acting, right? It's just like, oh, I'm pointing out the absurdity of something by being
Yeah.
this absurd character.
Yeah.
And in this video, it's him as a factory worker, and he's like trying to keep up with the whatever thing is and then he can't keep up, and then he gets like caught on the machine, and then ends up getting like sucked into it, and then goes through and is like stuck in the machine. He gets consumed by the machine.
Mm,
And it was just a really interesting thing to watch. Like, oh, people were, even back then, they were very concerned that
yeah.
we're going to get
Consumed.
devoured
Yeah.
and consumed by this if you don't pay attention. It's like there's always an opportunity to pay attention, right? Always an
Mhm.
opportunity to just go, boop, okay, wait, I'm aware of that. I notice this. I am not going to go down that path because, as we were talking about earlier, quantum possibility, right? Like we don't
Yeah.
have to choose that for ourselves. But the awareness piece and the attention and focus piece is huge because, as we were saying earlier, yeah, you could become aware. I'm aware that I should trust the universe, but then if we don't put on that regular attention and focus, we can just like instantly slip back and like,
Yeah.
right, get like put to sleep again.
Yeah.
Right. So you were
That,
mentioning that breath work, plant medicine are ways for you to stay awake and aware to the now. And
mhm.
you mentioned also just the nervous system work. So walk us through something like, what's something that you might do for your nervous system or with your nervous system or using breath that
Mhm.
helps you stay in that now presence, the awake and aware to you as a quantum being or a
Mhm.
multidimensional being rather than
Yeah.
get consumed in the
Yeah. I love talking about the differentiation between like that we are like quantum beings, and we also are having a very 3D grounded earthly human experience.
yeah.
Yeah, and acknowledging that both those things get to exist. And I think it's so easy for people to, especially like I see it in the spiritual conscious community, about like spending so much time in the astrals and the ethers and this like I'm a quantum being, and it's good to do work there. Yeah, like that's a great place to go do work and figure out things and tap into ancient wisdoms and indigenous cultures and whatever else lives there. And if we're not coming back and honoring this human experience,
Mhm.
we're doing a disservice to our people around us, ourselves, and the whole deal. Um, so that being said, the one thing that I know about the nervous system is and energy is that it runs central through our body. So we have the chakra, the 7 energy centers, and um, there's some people that say there's way more, and I believe there's way more, but there's 7, the main 7 ones that everyone knows about, root up to the crown. Um, that's pretty much the center of our nervous system as well. Everything kind of branches out from that. And so when we talk about things like Kundalini breath work or Kundalini meditations or anything that we can tap into where we are acknowledging those energy centers in our body and noticing um, in our body when so with breath, um, if you notice like when you're running, like, so imagine being chased by a tiger or someone trying to hurt you. What's going to happen is that you're going to run, you're going to get out of breath, and you're going to immediately go to your lungs for breath, which is where we go with fight or flight. Is that really vertical breath? But then on the opposite side of that, like when we're calm, you'll notice that we breathe into our belly. Is where the calming, the breath is the rest and digest breath. And so one of the things that I do daily, and it has been massive. I learned it about 2 years ago. It's a 3-part breath where you're bringing your breath, which is life force, which is prana, which is energy. You're bringing it up from your root to the crown and then right back down. And you go up and back down. So what you're doing is you're activating the 3 major energy centers of your body are the lower dantian, the center, the middle 3 chakras, and then the upper chakras. So if you get stuck in one of those areas, stuck in the upper chakras, people would say you're ungrounded. If you're stuck in the astrals, it's really hard for like to be human and do 3D things and all that. If you're stuck in the middle chakras here, you're probably in fight or flight a lot. Like, so you're, you know, on hyper vigilant, or, you know, a lot of like really like feeling short of breath all the time, unable to catch your breath. Now, if you're stuck in the lower chakras, it's grounded, it's kind of boring, it's kind of like dead weight almost. So the idea is that if we want to, so the energy centers in the nervous system are related because they run through that central column. Everything runs through that central column. So the vagus nerve, for example, if you wanted to do like a quick thing for the vagus nerve is humming. So take a deep breath in. And one thing you can do is so the vagus nerve runs by the vocal cords. So that tones the vagus nerve. And then as you hum, you can, I've learned to feel it getting deeper and deeper. So you can like, it can be very like nasally, but like a real, you feel that like it's a deeper thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
guttural.
Yeah. 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 And so what you're doing with that is that's a very embodied practice, but you're tapping into the entirety of that energy center. Humming. Another one is if you want ha. So our jaw holds. If you think about like bracing for impact, whether that's a verbal impact or a physical impact, what's the first thing that happens? Is like, ooh, the jaw tightens up. And so what that is like the jaw learns to hold a lot of trauma. So we say like shoulders carry a lot of stress, like the weight of the world. Gut issues is like inability to digest and process like life. The jaw is where we brace. Like, and so there's a practice called ha-ing, which is you make the HA sound, the ha, but you open your jaw as wide as possible. Ha. Even maybe stick the tongue out. Ha. But what it does is it tones the vagal nerve. At the same time, it's sending a signal to your body that it's okay not to brace. Like we don't like there's not a trauma incoming. So this world that we talk about with like all this attention and this things coming at us, we're essentially bracing a lot. As we are distracting, we're also bracing a lot. Because you know, you pull up Instagram and it's like, oh, see an X on there or like whatever it is.
Yeah, or you turn the news on and you
Yeah,
see, all of the
right.
horrors that they are implanting there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we don't really recognize how that like, ooh, like we take a hit every time we see that. And so the more that we can do, and I'll get to the breath in a second, but the more that we can do to relax our body, the more that we are able to receive the world and not get triggered. That's activated, whatever word you want to use there. So the more that we can use these practices to prepare our body for the world and for these experiences that are going to happen, when they're unavoidable, the thing that we get to do is say like, okay, the experiences, although unavoidable, how I respond to them is absolutely my responsibility. Like it is absolutely up to me. I can look at the news and say, okay, I noticed that, but is it like sending me into some sort of tizzy? Am I getting activated and triggered by it? Or am I remaining calm? Is like my partner comes home from work and she or he is like in a bad mood. Like, is that going to like, oh my God, what's this? Like, are we over? Like, are you going to freak out about it? Or are you going to just be grounded? Because you're in that moment when your partner is freaked out of having a bad day, your energy is going to be what's going to bring them back into regulation. And so when we can learn to regulate ourselves, we can regulate the people around us if they're out of whack, and then that our energy has that ripple effect, that quantum effect, where it is felt with our aura 9 feet all around us. Now, so we have humming, we have hawing, with the jaw open. Now, the 3-part breath is what I do every morning, where you're breathing into your belly, up into your lungs. So if you think 3 parts, one is the belly is first, the solar plexus area is the second breath, and then the third one's kind of up into the shoulders. And that's moving the breath up and down, the energy up and down your body, up and down your central column, so things don't get stuck. And in Hindu and Sanskrit, there's a word called samskara, which Michael Singer talks about in The Untethered Soul. But a samskara is a stuck energy. And so this breathing practice helps you to move energies. So things are less likely to get stuck in your body. Now, this energy also, as you bring it up and as you bring it down, your body is learning how to recognize where energy lives in it and move it. So if you feel yourself like, oh, I feel very ungrounded, take a few breaths into the root and bring it back down. So it's very centering, very grounding, and it has so many effects. Like literally, the symptom of it, or the result of it, is presence. Like
Yeah.
you become way more present. And I've been doing it for a while now, and like I've gotten direct feedback from some people very close to me that it has absolutely affected my presence and the way they experience me.
Mm-hmm. And you're covering all the bases with that, which is like once you figure out how to do it, it's very simple, right? You could
Yeah,
spend 5 minutes doing that,
yeah, yeah.
and boom, your day is different,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, 100% different. Yeah. So I usually do like 3 to 4 minutes of that and then a breath hold. And I'll either do like on the inhale a hold or on the exhale, depending
Mm-hmm.
if I feel like I need expansion that day, I'll do an inhale hold. If I feel like I need stillness, I'll do an exhale hold where there's more stillness.
Yeah, the holds are really interesting. I started doing those recently,
Yeah.
and a la Wim Hof, I learned it via the Wim Hof method. And
Mm-hmm.
it's fascinating for me because I've had a not as certainly as severe as yours, but I have there's some past life trauma around breath. And I think for me, even it's probably more this life trauma from holding my breath, like
Mm-hmm.
literally, like when you say, oh, like, oh, don't hold your breath for that person to come back into your life. I was abandoned when I was 3, and I think I
Mm-hmm.
literally was holding my breath, like
Oh,
waiting for my
wow.
mom to come back because I
Oh,
didn't know what was going on. And so
yeah.
I think I spent, from that moment from 3 years old until I was in my 20s, holding my breath. Like I never let go. I was
Mm,
always holding it, like waiting. And then therefore very shallow breathing. And until I saw a therapist in my early 20s, that was the first thing she noticed. She's just like, do you know that you breathe from your chest? Like
mm-hmm.
and I was like, what? I thought we were going to like
Wasn't
talk about
everybody?
my childhood and my problems or something. She's just like, this immediately, she just went to my breath.
Uh-huh.
And it was the greatest gift,
Yeah.
of probably my healing journey, because I didn't notice that. It's so profound, and I mean, it's so foundational to who
Yeah.
we are, how we breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And so for her to point that out is just such a massive gift. And then,
Yeah.
led me into yoga classes and doing different types of breathing at that point, and just even being in recognition of it,
Mm-hmm.
like, just noticing, like you were saying earlier, just going, oh yeah, this is something that I didn't know, and now I'm going to investigate it and then let it unfold. And I
Yeah.
think that, earlier when I was saying, oh, it's taken decades for me, and I think for you too, you could relate to this, that it's like it takes longer than you maybe want it to get to a place of like full acceptance or full trust or
Yeah.
full living and being in presence or whatever it might be. And yet every one of those moments is absolutely necessary. Right. And
100%.
so
Yeah.
I think that rather than focus on how long it might be taking, or, oh, I'm not where I want to be, it's like being in gratitude of every single moment that has led you to the now
Yeah.
is just a way to open up into more of what your now wants to be, rather
Yeah.
than, right, if you focus on what you don't have, or what isn't here, there is it's just another place to get stuck,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I mean, like so I love that when you said about like, oh, that just the recognition, like you're breathing in your chest led you to yoga, which I'm sure led you to something else. And so as you talk about, remaining open to like where these things, so it's not so much like we get to this acceptance or this enlightenment or whatever we want to call it. um we don't know, again, like back to the how, like it's not all yoga, it's not all breath, it's not all plant medicine, it's not all meditation. It's like what are these things that are present for us right now? Yoga, maybe. Like, what's a deep yoga practice for a year going to open you up to? Or
Right.
what's AA? I mean, ironic enough, AA led me to plant medicine. And
Hmm.
so, like, how can we be present with what is being offered to us right now as what is in our highest and best good? And then saying, like, nothing is forever.
Yeah.
Like, everything, like, I think that's one of the things about the human experience is that it's inherently impermanent. And our ego loves permanence. And so
Hmm.
oscillating or having, like, opening that conversation of, like, getting the ego. This is why I don't like the term ego death, because we don't want to kill the ego. That's just not good. And so having this conversation about how do we, like, incorporate and integrate and get the ego on our team to allow it to, instead of choosing that familiar hell, how do we get the ego to be on board with choosing the unfamiliar heaven? And that's the being open, like you were talking about what is each present moment offering that's going to lead me to the next present moment.
Hmm. And going back to what you were saying about those like little nudges, like, oh, you're instead of being like, damn, I forgot my keys or my phone, and then like turn into some sort of shame spiral. Like, I'm such
Yeah,
an idiot. I always
yeah,
forget something, right? Instead of like doing that spiral, like allow that to lead you into, oh, okay, well, this is for a reason. Something
yeah,
else is going to come from this. And so it is, it's the little and the big things, right? It's the noticing of all of that, or I guess just the surrendering also to
yeah,
all of that and allowing that to just to be.
yeah.
How do we go from, or I guess walk that line or tightrope of being and surrendering and also actively doing and, taking action on things? Like,
Hmm.
let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, awesome. um well, so the surrendering, I feel, is the opening up. And so within the surrender is the opening up to the experience of life. Life inherently is a action-based process, or action-based experience where, it's like the life, like let's take, we surrender to the idea of mail. Our mail comes to us, right? So we surrender that we have a PO box or a mailbox, and our mail comes to us. They're surrendered to that idea. They're surrendered to, and every day it's going to be a new thing. It could be a letter from a loved one. It could be a bill from a power company. Um, we surrender to that. Now the doing, in this analogy, the doing is like we still have to get up and walk to the mailbox to receive that letter, whatever it is. And so as we surrender to these processes, this life that, like, this flow that is always around us, this feminine energy, the life force of the planet that flows around us all the time. This is a lot into masculine feminine balance now, is that we also get to participate in the experiences that are being presented to us. The surrender is the dropping the resistance to I want it to be this way and it's not. The surrender is like, okay, it is this way and I'm okay with it. The doing, the masculine side of it, is the, okay, what is this, like this podcast, for example, like we had to, like, open up our laptops, log in, we had to connect on Instagram. There's a lot of things that we had to do when the opportunity presented itself to us. You presented yourself to me some random way on Instagram, and I reached out and said, hey, I would absolutely love to have a conversation with you. Now, beyond that's the surrender, was the receiving, the ability to receive that. The side of the doing is like, okay, now what are the things that we get to do to actually bring this to fruition and make it happen?
Yep. Yeah. Beautiful analogies. I love that. And so you do a lot of work within, I know you do a lot of work with men, but you do a lot of work within that masculine and feminine balance,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, share a little bit more about what the core of your work's like.
The core of my work is relational, and I stop short of saying relationships, because I think that people uh, tend to make, oh, that means intimate relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever it is. Yes, and yes, that's a huge part of it. I mean, there's we always talk about, there's three big buckets in life. One is love, relationships, one is health, fitness, and one is finances and purpose and career. And so a lot of those, within those three things, is also a lot of human pain points. And so people struggle with relationships. And so the way that we relate in an intimate setting with a partner is also very, very closely related to the way that we relate to our life in general.
Mhm.
So within masculine feminine now, the life force of the planet is a feminine energy. There's a reason it's called Mother Nature, and she's the most powerful force on the planet because it's a feminine energy. And then there's Father Time. So time is this thing that happens, this kind of structure, day, night. And I'm not talking about clocks or like meetings. I'm talking about like sun setting, earth
Mhm.
revolving, like time passing, like the experience of day and night and all that. Um, that allows the structure, the seasons, that allows the structure of Mother Nature to flow and be who she's going to be within that. And so, how do we as humans relate to all the things in our life? How do we tap into that? The one is like the structure of this like experience, this 80 or 100 years that we have here. And within that, how do we relate to money? How do we relate to our partners? How do we relate to our purpose here? How do we relate to food? How do we relate to writing or anything really? I heard Joe Dispenza say it once, is that he works really hard to have good relationships with all things in his life. And I was like, yes. And so then if then the work that mostly the work I do is I help men, or I work with couples too, but mostly it's men. How do they relate to because a lot of men will struggle with that feminine partner that's in front of them. Again, it's a source of massive pain and rejection for a lot of guys growing up and leading into adulthood, is that they've experienced some rejection, some humiliation, some shame, some guilt, some betrayal, self and others in these relationships with women. And so, and also what they don't see is that it's also affected every other area of their life, is because of this masculine feminine balance. And
Mhm.
so when the work that I do is about it usually starts with how do I better my relationship with the woman in front of me? How do I hold her in all her chaos and flow and love and sexiness and energy and feminine energy and goddess and the stuff that to the man's nervous system feels really crazy. Yeah. And so and likewise, like to the feminine nervous system, the masculine structure is like, oh yeah, I don't like it. And so like and so what I do, and this has been a big learning for me in this lifetime, is how do I expand my capacity and my space and my ability to hold a a really powerful feminine, large, big feminine energy. And so because that's what the feminine energy is. And so what I do is I teach men how to be the unwavering presence that can hold that feminine energy. And oh yeah, by the way, when you can hold that, you can hold a lot more of the other stuff in your life too.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that man, and we all need both, right? We
Yeah.
need both in the world. We need
Yes.
both in its their full entirety in their, being in their all the recognition of the essence of those, but also in the fullness of those, which I think
Yes.
has we're off kilter
Yeah.
in the planetary time right now. So I'm so happy about the work you're doing and learning more about it. I'll put
Thank you.
all of your links in the show notes so that everybody can, of course, connect to you and find out more about the work and about the other things that you do as well. What would you like to leave the audience with today? Is there
Mm,
anything that's on your heart or that's coming through as a message that you want to leave?
mm. First of all, thank you so much for having me. And this conversation has been amazing. I love how we were like flowing in between the the quantum and the mystical and the human stuff. It's my favorite conversation to have.
Awesome.
Something that I would love to leave with. So, what's on my heart right now is this unwavering presence, and I feel that the way to presence is to become develop the ability to hold our pain, because as we talked about, the pain is the one thing that, whether it's actual pain happening right now or anticipation of pain, it's going to take us out of presence. That's it, bottom line. And so I would say that the one thing that to leave with is find places in this world, people, groups, journals, meditations, where you can access and feel your pain and hold space for your own pain so that you can better hold space for the love that is literally right in front of you all the time.
Yeah. All right. I mean, if you can befriend pain
Yeah.
and hold pain, you can hold anything, right?
100% true. Yes.
Beautiful, Sam. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, that was awesome.